Hey, what's up, everybody? It's Jared Allison, another episode of Whiskey with an Agent. This is episode number 4. Today, we are going to be talking about contracts. So, where'd it go? Dang it, I lost my, oh, I just had it. Well, I don't have my intro. So, I'm going to pull Chris up here. What's going on?
Not much. After a couple episodes, you think we'd have this down fluid by now, but trial
Uh,
by
oh,
error.
oh, wait.
Oh,
Hold on,
oh.
pause. Yes, I found it. It was hidden. I could play it again if you want me to, but
That's awesome.
what's going on, man?
Not much, brother. Just had my bachelor party over this past weekend, and I'm
Nice.
back in the saddle, ready to rock and roll for anybody who needs help buy and sell and investing in a commercial. What
Sweet,
about you?
man.
What about you?
Well, I listed 2 homes just a few
Mhm.
days ago,
Nice. Where
and
at? Give the people
one
give the people some info.
one in Venetian Bay over in New Smyrna Beach,
Okay.
and another one in Deltona. And literally, the one in New Smyrna Beach, 3 days on the market.
Hmm.
It was listed at well, we're still pending, so I'm not going to talk about pricing or anything. But it took 3 days
Mhm.
to um, to get it under contract. Deltona House went on the market, had a contract that same day. So I mean, it's on fire. And then I've got
Yeah.
another small property it's a 1 bedroom. It's over in Port Orange off of Dunlawton. Actually, I have if you're ever in the area and you're driving down Dunlawton, there's I have a giant sign. It's like a 4 foot by 6 foot sign. My
Mhm.
mug is on there. It's about 3 feet tall. So you'll see me on Dunlawton Avenue saying there's a house for sale. And
Yeah.
but it's that one's listed at 250, and we're actually negotiating a contract right now. That one was a little bit harder sale, but
Hmm.
it was
So
we're
that one took 7 days instead of 4.
yeah, exactly. So, well, I mean, and it was it's an interesting little property because it's actually zoned neighborhood preservation,
Hmm.
which allows for obviously single family, but then also multifamily, or you can even convert it into like a commercial office building or something like that. So,
Very
um,
interesting. That's
a lot
cool.
of variety that you can
Potential.
do with that. So,
Yeah. So I guess it depends on like what's going to be the biggest bang for the buck because since you can go into so many types of avenues, so that gives it the kind of a differential in value in terms of the land.
right. Yep.
So
And
it's
that
just like,
was
is there more value in it being a commercial than it might be in the seller's best interest to rezone it for commercial? Therefore, you
yes.
can sell it for a higher price.
Right. And
So
that was the hard part trying to
figure that out.
pinpoint that price point, because if you're just looking at the house, then yeah, the
Hmm.
it's a small house. It's a 1 bedroom, 1 bath. But if
Yeah.
you're looking at the use of the use of the property and what's around it and what the city of Port Orange is doing, it's right down
Hmm.
the street from that new Riverwalk thing that they're building and
Yeah.
everything. So there's a lot of potential for growth right there. So
Dang.
it's going to be interesting. So
Good luck with
we'll
that, man.
see. Yeah, we'll see what happens. But like I said, we should be getting a contract on that one um, here in the next either tonight or tomorrow morning. So
Fingers crossed for you, man. Fingers
yeah,
crossed.
yeah.
So,
So
quick question: what are you drinking tonight?
well, I'm drinking the same thing I was drinking last time, and that is my go-to Blue Label.
Glenlivet,
Yeah,
Blue Label.
Glenlivet.
I love
So
it.
the Founders Reserve. But I know you, Chris. You've probably got something different, don't you?
Yes, I do. I'm
Of
not sure
course
if
you
I
do.
mentioned this one. So this one's Red Breast number 12,
Okay.
12 year.
Yep.
And this was shout out to Zach Gorodnick, a good buddy of mine who was in town about a month or so ago. And we went liquor shopping and we shared different flavors of whiskey. And we got
Oh,
each
nice.
other. I got him like a Japanese whiskey and he got me this. And
Oh, very
I got to
cool.
say, I love it. It's delicious.
Yeah.
And Yeah, and we got to spend more time over the weekend because he came with me to the bachelor party. So it was a
Very
great,
nice.
great
Very
time.
cool.
Absolutely great time. So highly
Cool.
recommended.
Yeah, I'll have to try that. One of these days, I will get me a different kind of whiskey.
Hey, you
But
got your favorite
it's
go-to. It's perfectly fine.
yep. Well, no, it's good. It's been a busy couple of weeks. I actually just got back from a trip. I went to India for a few days. I work for the airlines as well, and
Mhm.
for anybody that doesn't know, and yeah, I did my first trip out to India. So that was interesting. It was a 14-hour flight going there and a 14-hour flight coming back. So
That's a long, long flight. Do you pilots just like take turns sleeping at that point?
yeah, so there's four of us on board, and
Oh
so
wow.
the first two after we take off and we're cruising, the first two will go back and it was about a 6 hour break. So they'll go back, take a nap, do whatever. And then they come up and then me and the other pilot go back and take a nap. And we have like in this airplane, we have like our own little bunk bed area and stuff where we can actually lay down and get some actual sleep. So it's
That is
so it's
crazy.
it's
That's
not too
cool.
bad, but it's just a long time to be on an airplane.
I hope you get like more. I would imagine you get more because it's a longer duration of a flight further away, like cross
Yeah.
country. Like it's
Yeah.
got to be, or international, I think is the correct term.
Yep.
It's got to be a better payday for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah,
A couple, like
it
what,
does
2 days total of unpleasantry for some good pay.
right. Right. Well, this one was a 4-day trip, so we left on Sunday and then I got back this morning,
Mhm.
back at the house about 10 o'clock this morning.
And you
So
don't
not
have
too bad.
any jet lag?
Oh, I do, but I'm hiding it. I'm hiding
You're doing a great job.
it. I'm used to it. I've been doing it long enough now that I get back and I'm tired. I almost fell asleep earlier today, but I usually push through and just get a good night's sleep tonight and go for it. So,
That's awesome.
um, but yeah, so that's what I'm drinking. That's what you're drinking. I want to know
Yep.
what everybody else. What are you guys drinking? You drinking whiskey? You drinking beer? Drinking a
Drinking some
cocktail?
vodka, drinking some
Yeah.
agua. What are y'all
What
drinking?
what you got? Let us know. Post something in the comments.
Yeah,
I just want to see. So we're using a new platform, and I wanted to see if the comments they should be feeding through on my
I
end. Chris, I don't know if you can see them on your end or not.
hold on. I kind of
But
lost it. Let's see here. Nothing yet.
oh, I got
The
Jillian.
question is just now.
So then one of the cool things is so Jillian just posted. I can put it up on the screen. How cool is that?
Whoa,
Yeah, right.
that is awesome.
That's pretty
What's that?
cool.
So, dog yelling at postman or a
I
cop?
think it's a pilot. So I
Ah,
came home.
gotcha.
Yeah, dogs and pilots. That's
That
fun.
is so cool. What
So
a cool system.
yeah, it is. It is pretty cool. And
Okay.
once I get it figured out, then it'll be even better.
Awesome.
um,
All right. So, get
so
into the subject.
yes.
Lead it
So
off.
today, so in the last episode, we talked about getting your house ready to get listed, going on the
Mm-hmm.
market, all that
Mm-hmm.
stuff. That was episode 3. So if you want to see that, I'll actually put a link to it in the comments. That way you can go back and reference because we may reference it, so go back and watch it and know what we're talking about. But we talked about getting your house listed. So kind of the next step is, you're listed, you're on the market, and you're going to start getting offers, just like the couple of houses that I just listed. We started getting offers, and we've got to go through those contracts and
Mm-hmm.
start deciphering the good from the bad, and the little gotchas. And that's what we're going to talk about today is the contracts. We're not going to get too detailed. I'm not a lawyer. I don't think, Chris, you went to law school
Definitely.
at
Nope.
all. So neither one of us are lawyers. So
Yep.
if you actually need legal advice, go talk to a lawyer. If you
Yep.
want to sit here and watch us talk about contracts and drink whiskey, hang out. And
Yep.
then go talk to a lawyer and tell them what we said.
This is probably going to be one of the most boring podcasts we did because no one wants to hear about contracts. It's all about getting into the weeds. We're trying not to get into the weeds of things. Just really kind of give a basic understanding of it. That's
Yep.
today's subject or
Yep.
the goal rather. So if
Yep.
we get too far into the weeds, because I like to go into nuances of things and scenarios. So, Jared, when you see me start going too deep, you reel me back, all right?
So one of the nice things with this system is I can just completely cut you out of the video and
Oh,
your sound and everything.
that's great. I
And
thought to myself for a minute before I realized it. Got it.
so I'll just let you keep going, and I'll just turn you off, and I'll keep talking. And when it looks like you're done, I'll turn it back on.
That's awesome.
Let's see.
Uh,
Derek is drinking
Jameson on the
Jameson
glass.
with the glass. All right. Derek, do you drink ice with your Jameson, or are you just drinking it straight or neat, as they would say? Um,
I got $5 on neat.
yeah, that's what I'm thinking. All right, so contract. So, like Chris said, we're not going to go too deep into it. We just want to hit a lot of the highlights, things
Mhm.
that when you get a contract, when your agent, your realtor sends you a contract, that you can look through it and at least know some of the things that. Um, dang it, he said he drinks it neat. Whatever.
Yes, my man.
All right then. So yeah, let's
Yep.
well, first, before I so I'm going to do a screen share, and we're going to pull up a contract here and kind of go through it. But
Well, before
um
we get into that, we got to say
yeah,
there's two types of contracts right now.
correct.
So there is the FAR bar contract. And let's just like to give everyone kind of a small little backstory. The FAR bar is the Florida bar and the Florida Realtors, the Board of
Yes.
Realtors. All right.
Yeah.
So they came together and they created a very concise, easy to read, legible for the everyday person or consumer who reads these contracts. So they came together and they created the two types of contracts. The first one is the FAR bar, and the other one is the FAR bar as is, which is the most commonly used contract today.
Yes.
So we're going to go ahead and give you a brief understanding of both of them. So Jared, which one are we going to cover first?
Well, what you said, there's an as is contract, and
Mm-hmm.
then the other one is kind of a non as is that's kind of how I think of it. It's there's some repairs that are involved with the
Mm-hmm.
FAR bar contract. The one that I typically use is like you said, the as is contract.
Mm-hmm.
The FAR bar. So just to go over, the main difference is the FAR bar contract. It requires the seller to actually do some repairs after the inspection is completed. So let's say a buyer comes to your house, they give you a contract, and they come and do the inspection. They find a few things that are wrong with the house. The seller is actually responsible to fix certain
Mm-hmm.
items up to a certain amount that you've negotiated into the contract.
Mm-hmm.
And I've not used one of these contracts because I use the as is pretty much almost 100% of the time. Have
Mm-hmm.
you actually used the far bar at all?
Almost. I almost had I had an opportunity to use one because that was what the seller had requested. Is an actual FAR bar contract where repairs, the amount is going to be kind of baked into the contract, whereas the as is right to right to inspection and the right to cancel.
Correct.
That's a significant difference. With
Yeah.
the FAR bar, you're essentially locked in unless financing dictates otherwise.
Correct.
Whereas the contract is that you have what's called an inspection period to where you can back out with your
Yeah.
deposit.
Yeah.
So there's one that's really loose, and then there's
Yes.
one where you're stuck, you're locked
Yes.
in. And
Yeah.
that's where we're going to pretty much significant difference. So we're going to go into it further to really kind of hammer the point home that the true difference is just one has a right to cancel and the other one does not.
Correct. So you want me to throw let me do the screen share, and let's see which. Wait. There it
Wait for
is.
it. There it is.
Is that good? Can you see it on? Let me know if you can see in the. Let me know in the comments if you guys can see that. Okay. We also have another listener that just joined with us. Is Marcia? What's going on, Marcia?
And Jillian. Don't forget Jillian.
Oh yeah. Well, no, I mentioned her. She's the one that posted the dog and
Oh, I'm
the
sorry. Sorry,
the
Jillian. My
dog
bad.
something and Pilot, and we got um, Marcia said, "Hey, Jared Allison, you are a top notch realtor." Well, thank you.
I will
I do
agree
my
to that and
best.
cheers to it.
I do my best.
All right, so we should be able to zoom in a little bit better to give to give the viewers a little bit better of a. There we go, much better.
Okay. So, actually, let me just so you can see the whole thing. All right. So I mean, starting at the top here, and names, address, legal description, that all comes from the county tax records. Well, your name doesn't, but the address and the legal description, the tax ID number, all that stuff. So that all comes from the county tax records. You can find it on your local county appraiser website. Other what you gonna?
I was gonna say, Derek, we see your question.
Oh,
When we get to the inspection part of this contract, we'll definitely circle back with you on that. Okay.
okay.
He's got a great question about,
I
does a
see
home
that.
inspection really cover the pool and making sure it's up to standard? So we'll definitely address that here very shortly.
All right.
I don't want to skip around,
Yeah. Let's see. So personal property. Do you typically put things in here, Chris?
Yes. So
Okay.
can you scroll over just a little bit to the left? That way we can see more. Okay, so section, that way people have a point of reference
Oh, there we
for
go.
like section
Yep.
D. So if you can get that's perfect. So section D is the terms of personal property. Now, the as is contract is already, when it comes to personal property, we're talking about mainly the appliances, refrigerator, the dishwasher, disposal, everything is kind of written out black and white right there in that paper. Anything else that you can see here on the bottom of section D, other personal property items included in the purchase. It could be a secondary fridge. A very common place for a second fridge is the garage.
Yes.
A freezer, a grill that's kind of fixed to the wall outside. There's a number of things that could be considered personal property that could convey with that can convey with a purchase, and that's where you would put it. Now, there are some things in section E, as you can see here, the following items to be excluded upon the purchase. Now,
Right.
sometimes the seller had just bought like a $5,000 fridge, so therefore they're going to take that fridge with them, which is completely understandable.
Right.
However, and that's where they will put it right there.
Yes.
A right there. Now, one
Yep.
thing you make sure you have to negotiate when you know that is that they replace the fridge of something of a similar quality. That's
Right.
something that I always advocate for,
Yes.
unless you wanted to get your own. So anytime that's something that is typically fixed in the property, I would recommend to negotiate something of like quality. Doesn't
Yep.
have to be the $5,000 fridge, but if it's a stainless steel, you want to make sure you get a stainless steel.
Correct.
That's something that I always advocate for. But yeah, I mean, excluded upon purchase price personal property could be almost anything that is already baked into the contract, and that's super important. Super
Yes.
important. I have a horror story. I don't want to get too much into the weeds with it, but
Oh, okay.
because this a contract going through contracts is pretty long process, so I don't want
Yeah.
to get too off in
Well,
tangents.
if when we get to the end, if you want to talk about your horror story, then we
All
can
right,
do that.
cool.
All right. So yeah, I mean it's yeah, it's pretty straightforward, but just make sure that whatever's in these boxes actually makes sense when you're looking
Hmm.
at it.
Yep.
And they're not putting some weird things that it's just yeah,
Hmm.
just look
It's
at it.
also very important to know what kind of financing you have. Say for FHA, FHA and VA appliances must
True.
be
Yeah.
in the
Yep.
property.
Yep.
So what I mean by that is like the kitchen appliances must convey with the property, like, or they must be in there before closing, or else you're not going to be able to close on a loan. That's if it was a conventional loan, doesn't matter. You could have no appliances. It could just be a shell of a house, and you could still go ahead. But so it's really, you got to know what kind of financing that you have, and make sure that some of those appliances do convey. The only personal property that can and can't be there is washer and dryer. So washer and dryer is a big thing. Don't assume that it conveys with the purchase of the property,
Correct.
because it does
Yep.
not. That
It
is
doesn't.
considered a personal property.
Yep.
So that is something right there on for section D on
Yes.
personal items to be included.
Right here. Yep. Yeah, so if you want that washer and dryer, make sure it is in here. If not,
Yep.
the sellers are they have all the right to take it with
To
them.
take it. Yep.
So, and you have no recourse at the end if it's not in the contract. Then you
It's
know
not there. You can't
it's not
assume it's all
cor-
about writing.
correct. So
Okay.
one of the things I've learned about contracts, and my dad's always said is, just because you and I might know each other, and we know, we're good to verbally say, yes, you can have this or you can do that. But if it ever has to go to the court, the judge, the lawyers, nobody knows what you and I talked about. So you
Yeah.
got to put it in writing. So if it's
Yep.
not in writing, it's like it never happened. So
Exactly. It's
that's why these are so important.
hmm Yep. It's and if the realtor doesn't do their job correctly, that realtor could end up paying for a new piece of appliance.
Correct. And that has happened in the past. I've
Yes,
heard
it has.
stories where they've bought new
That's part.
refrigerators, washer and dryers, and
Yep. That's part
yes.
of my horror story.
Oh boy.
Good thing it didn't come out of my pocket.
That's
So
good.
purchase price.
Purchase price. So pretty straightforward. Purchase price here on this line. These are just some dummy numbers I just threw in there.
Hmm.
So you have the purchase price, and then you have the initial deposit to be held in escrow. So this is typically you want to see at least 1%. Um, I wouldn't, I typically, if somebody does less than 1%, I go back to them. I say we got to see at least 1%,
Hmm.
or a minimum of 1,500 bucks. I really don't like to go less than 1,500 bucks. 2% is key. You can actually do an initial deposit of 1%, and then you have an option down here. I'm kind of skipping around a little bit, but we're talking about escrows. So you have a where's it at?
It's right
Right
there.
here. Yeah.
Section
So
B.
and I put 50,000. I meant to
Yeah.
put 5,000.
Addition.
There we go.
It's right. Yeah. Additional deposit.
So yeah, the second deposit, and typically that's done after the inspection period is complete. So that would
Hmm.
be an additional deposit after the inspection period, and it's just to kind of help seal the deal, to show
Yeah.
the seller that you're serious
Hmm.
um, about buying the house.
Yep.
So
It is a strategy to do a second deposit, and the
yes,
larger the deposit, the more you're essentially willing to show at risk, and you're conveying more seriousness to any seller, because it's easy to throw up $1,500 for just 1%. And
correct.
if it's a multiple offer situation, I can guarantee you majority of people are doing that 1%. But
Yes.
if you come out of the gate swinging, I'm
Hmm.
willing to put, and you have the money, if you have the money and you're willing to put, say, 10,000 plus upfront,
Yes.
and
Yeah.
for this case it's $500,000. So if you are willing to put like an excess of amount of money into an escrow deposit,
Yeah.
you are telling the seller, this is how serious I am. Because
Yes.
essentially with an as is contract, what we're talking about here is that you're conveying absolute seriousness, and now you're
Yes.
willing to risk 10 plus $1,000. Now, again,
Correct.
not everyone has this, and you have to play within your scope. But say if
Right.
you have only 5,000 or 10,000 in this case, and you want to try to play a little manipulation and actually say,
Mhm.
"Hey, I'm going to go ahead and deposit 5,000 now, and then at the end of the inspection period, I'll go ahead and deposit another 5,000," showing conveying more seriousness. I've done this
Correct.
strategy many times, and I've actually gotten many offers accepted this way.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a good way to win contracts because
Yes, it
yeah,
is.
you start putting a lot of deposit down. It really says a lot, how serious the buyer is. So
Hmm.
as a seller, that's a great thing to look at. As a buyer, it's a great thing to look at. So
Yes.
it's
Yeah.
good on both sides.
Yep.
Um, let's see, most of the deposit. So the first deposit's going to be done typically within 3 days.
Hmm.
You can do a deposit that accompanies the offer. So as you hand the seller the offer, you're also handing them some sort of check, cashier's check, or
Or a picture.
whatever,
Take
or
a
a picture
picture
of
of
a
the check.
check. Just something that shows that the 5,000 bucks, as soon as they accept it, it's going into escrow.
Yep.
Um, we have the title company information. That's who your closing agent's gonna be.
Hmm.
Um, and then we have so I had a contract that we just got today, and the buyer's agent didn't fill any of this out. They put in the amount, they put in the deposit, and then they put in the amount to bring to closing, but
And
they didn't fill
that's just
any.
laziness.
Yeah, and
Because
I
because you're telling everyone, the lender and the title company, that it's wrong,
right.
or you're not filling in that it's super important, especially if you're financing. You need to
Yes,
put Section C finance express as a dollar amount or percentage of
correct,
the loan amount. So if you're
correct.
doing 10%, you do $500,000 times 0.9, so 90%.
Right.
And then you go ahead and you minus $10,000 because you put 5,000 escrow, you put another $5,000 in addition, and that will
Yes.
tell you exactly how much you're financing. It's
Yes.
super simple math, and the fact that that agent didn't do it just invokes laziness. So, as
Correct.
a someone who's representing a seller, and I see this, I'm like, if he's being lazy on this, what else are they being lazy on?
Right.
And then you need to go and scrutinize the contract and go through with a finer tooth comb.
Right.
And there is something that we need to make sure we address, is that our contracts fall on two types of days. There is business days, and then there are calendar days. There's a significant difference, and there's a lot of back and forth on what days kind of fall upon.
Yes.
So
Yep.
your initial deposit due within 3 days. So this is a common question I get, Jared. I don't know about you. It's
Yeah.
like, okay, so the question typically comes out, so when do we deposit this? Before a contract's accepted or what? And I'm saying, so when the contract comes back, if you're represent the buyer and you are the buyer, if the contract comes back to you signed by the seller, that is
Mm-hmm.
considered the effective date.
Correct.
The following day is considered day one, because
Yes.
you have 24 hours in a day. So if
Correct.
the contract came back at 11:50 at night, there's no way day one's over. So
Right.
that's the effective date. So day one starts on the following day, and then
Correct.
you count 3 days to that.
Right.
And the same thing applies for, or actually, that same thing applies, but should that third day fall on a weekend, Saturday,
Correct.
Sunday,
Yes.
or a national holiday,
Mm-hmm.
that third day automatically extends to the next. Because we just had Columbus
To the
Day
next
on Monday.
business day.
Exactly. So we just had Columbus Day. So if you went under contract on Friday, Saturday is gone, Sunday is gone, Monday is gone. So Tuesday is your day to turn in that deposit.
Yes. Yep. So it's and I think it's even by 5 p.m. on the next business days.
Yes, that's correct. Because you're falling under business day. And the reason why that is because title companies 9 to 5 and banks are 9 to 5 with the occasional 6 o'clock, depending on who your bank is, your banking institute. So that falls under a business day. So
Correct.
long as you get the deposit in and you can show proof, whether it be like a proof of receipt or a picture, and you turn that in, you're good. You're not in a breach of contract per se.
Yes. So so that that's for the escrow, and that holds true with all dates through the contract. So as you see dates, um,
Sorry,
what
Cole. Indigenous
oh
People Day. Excuse me.
yes. Well, and you had said that, and I was going to correct you, but then I was like, well,
I
we're not here for that dispute. We're here to talk about contracts.
Yeah,
But
that's a
yes,
different subject. So we just got something. Monica just joined us. She missed the beginning. What's the subject? So we just covered days. There are two types of days of the contract. There is calendar days and there are business days. Calendar days fall from a 24-hour cycle, so 12 a.m. to 11:59 p.m. And then business days are essentially 9 to 5.
yes. And also, Monica, we're talking about real estate contracts. I don't know. She said she missed the beginning. What's the subject? I'm not sure where she jumped in, but we're talking about real estate contracts. And if you're selling a house or buying a house and you have a contract, you're going to make an offer, you need to be able to, have a little bit of familiarity with what you're filling out, what your realtor's filling out, and then what you're ultimately signing and responsible for at the end of the day. So yeah, that's what we're talking about. So, um, so we've kind of covered the financing purchase or the purchase price section
Mhm.
with escrow and how to fill these out, what to look for. Basically, just your realtor should be able to look at this real quick. And like I said on that last contract that I had, this was just all messed. He actually had the amount that was, or he had the balance to close as the amount of what the loan was going to be. So he had it as the buyer was going to bring, like $300,000 to closing, and I was like, well, that's not because that's not right, because those numbers aren't adding up.
Right.
And so it's something that it was an oversight on his part, and but we got it corrected, and so it's just one of those things you got to make sure that
Mm-hmm.
it's all
And
set and good.
And you're right, Monica. It can be overwhelming as a consumer or a seller or a
Yeah,
buyer, but that's what you hire us for as agents, is to make sure that we look over these details for you when we're representing you
yeah,
as a buyer,
yeah,
and making sure that your offer is clean and presentable, and not missing any details when being presented, because the seller is being represented by a realtor as well, and they're
correct.
looking through these contracts and making sure, is like, is this person excuse me, is this person lazy, or are they
Right.
actually
Yeah,
presenting a clean, well thought out, easy to understand offer? And
exactly.
that goes a very long way. I cannot tell you how many times I get offers that are just half filled out, and it's just like,
Yes.
what are you presenting here?
Yeah. And you, yeah, so
It's
it's,
crazy, yeah.
yeah.
It's wild. So let's go ahead. Should we do time of acceptance?
Yeah, so time of acceptance, this one's pretty straightforward. So
Hmm.
you get a contract, an offer today, and right now most buyers, they want to see some sort of response by the next day.
Or the
I
same day,
actually,
and
or
they just
or
push that.
yeah, or even the same day. As a seller, don't let a buyer push you into, making a decision on the whim, because you're going to end up missing something. Or, I think, in my opinion, everybody needs at least one night to sleep on it, because I mean, sometimes I have my best ideas and my best, aha moments when I wake up in the morning and I'm like, wait a second, here's a good idea. I like
Mhm.
what's in the contract, but let me change this one thing.
Yep.
But if I go and I just, sign it right away, then it's,
Yeah.
I'm not going to be, ultimately, I'm not going to be happy with it. So,
Yeah. And
um,
the way this market is too, it's also about understanding your market. When
correct.
right now there are 3.8 offers per sold home on average, then you're better off waiting a couple days to see what else comes in.
Correct.
Most homes come on the market on a Thursday or Friday, let the weekend play out, and then you
Yep.
review all offers. So I
Yes.
guarantee in this market, depending on where you are, you're going to get an offer within the first 24 hours.
Yep.
And should that offer, say, oh, you have to respond in 12 hours, or the next morning, be like, no, like,
No.
I guarantee you'll still be here on Monday wanting to buy
Yes.
this house. So
Yes. Well,
that's trying to create that sense of urgency.
it is.
Saying
It
that you
is.
mean these buyers are going to walk away is not
Yes.
realistic in this market at
And
all.
it's ultimately, I mean, it's honestly, it's a strategy. It's not even,
It's not a
hey,
well thought out one, as
yeah,
says.
but it nonetheless, it is a strategy to try to create that sense of urgency, like you said.
Mhm.
So yeah, it's just, but
Yeah.
it right now in this kind of market, it doesn't work in a
Buyer's
buyer's
market or
market.
normal,
Yes,
100%,
yes,
100%.
of course it would work. But when somebody comes to me and says they need to know today, I said,
Mhm.
well, I'll get back to you after I get, through the other 5 offers that I already have that don't need to know anything until tomorrow.
Yep.
So if you're still around, then, we'll talk. But
Mhm.
it's so offer acceptance. If you're a seller, don't, don't get into a frenzy saying, "Oh, we're going to lose the buyer, we're going to lose the buyer." There's
Yeah.
so few houses out there right now that if somebody took the time to look at your house, come up with a price, and fill out a contract and sign it and send it to you, they're not just going to walk away, because
There's no way.
chances are this is the only house that they're looking at right now, because there's so few on the market,
Mhm.
and they're afraid that they've probably already missed, 4 or 5 other houses because
Yeah.
they got outbid or whatever. So the buyers are desperate right now.
Exactly.
So
So when you push that time of acceptance, as a seller, don't necessarily worry about that. As a buyer, you gotta look at least 24 hours. Give,
yes.
especially
Yep.
if the market at the house just came on a Friday.
Right.
make
Right.
that acceptance date to say Monday or Tuesday. And I do
Yes.
this. I honestly
Yeah.
do this. I make it a prolong. That
Yeah.
way it shows that, hey, we're here. Here's our offer. You have
Right.
plenty of time. I understand there's more offers. It's inevitable right now in this market. And just kind of play to what they want. And I actually, when it comes to the close date, now I actually leave that open because some sellers are looking for their next house as well.
Correct.
So in that case, just like, hey, seller, what's the best day for you? Go
Yeah.
ahead, put it in there. That
Yeah.
works. But if you're on a time crunch, things can play out. And
Yeah.
plus, if you leave the time of acceptance longer, you don't have to come back and correct that if they choose your offer.
Right.
You know,
That's true. And
it's
I'll even sometimes go as far as I'll just leave that section blank as well because
hmm,
I'm I'm here to buy a house. I mean, if you accept it today or you accept it tomorrow, I mean, if it's a good offer, you're going to accept it. If it's a bad offer, you're going to come back with a counter because you want to
yeah,
sell your house. I want to buy your house.
yep,
So there's a mutual agreement there that we both want something out of this deal.
yep,
So there's no sense if it's a good enough offer, I shouldn't have to pressure you into just signing something. So sometimes I'll leave that blank. And then if for some reason the buyers change, they change your mind, we just send a cancellation and then we're done. We move on to the next one,
yep,
or the seller is going to choose somebody else and we don't win the offer, and then again we move on to the next one. So sometimes I'll leave blank. I've never actually left the closing date blank, but I usually put something in there just because uh,
well,
I not to rush the sellers, but just to let them know is like, hey, I I can close, by this date, or as a buyer, I'm selling my house and I cannot close until this date. So I want
mhm,
the seller to know what my situation is. So I'll put something in there, but usually
yeah,
as an agent, I'll let the other agent know, say, hey, I put in, November 30th, but my buyers are good for November 15th, or they can't do it until they have to be November 30th or later or something.
yeah. And I think that also just having a conversation with the agent. So many times
Yes.
I've gotten offers and I've never had a single communication with this
Correct.
agent other than I
Correct.
want to see the house or I want to show the house.
Right.
So it's also that kind of building that relationship and that connectivity,
Yeah.
that connection, excuse me. That way you can kind of see, say, hey, Joe listing. What is the seller essentially looking for a time frame? Do they already have a house lined up, or
Right.
are they looking for a house? What kind of situation are they in? And they'll tell you flat out like what is going on with their seller situation, and essentially, without going too much into detail, because they have a fiduciary relationship to the seller of what it is
What
their
was that word
scenario
again?
is.
What was that word again?
Fiduciary
Fiduciary.
relationship. Yeah.
Fiduciary.
Did I butcher it?
No, I was just most people.
Fiduciary,
I first time I heard that word, I was like, what does that mean? But
right?
yeah,
Um,
it's a weird word.
okay, so moving on. But before we go too further, the
Yeah.
very last sentence, where it says bottom of page 1 of 12, you see where it says, can you zoom in anyway on the revision 619?
Let's see, where are you talking about
Right
here?
there,
Oh,
right
right
there.
here.
The mouse is over it. Yep,
Yeah.
right there. There are still agents who use outdated contracts. So as a buyer's agent and as a seller's agent, it's super important that you are using the correct contract because contracts change over time. And the last revision is right there. Revision
Yes.
June of 2019, off of the 2017 Florida Realtors. That's so an actual change is actually coming right now. The Florida Realtors just released a brand new statement of what is going to be changing. Hasn't taken place yet, hasn't taken effect yet, but it's coming. So as a listing agent, one of the first things I'm looking at is bottom of page 1.
Yep.
Which revision of which contract are they using? And I've called out many agents, experienced agents, and it's like, this is a contract I've been using for years. I'm like, yeah, but it's out of date.
Yeah. Yep. Yep.
So Um,
Um,
so moving on, extension. So this is
that's
important. Number five. Number five is very important. Automatic extensions of the contract.
yes.
Jared, do you want to take it or should I?
No, go for it.
Okay. So there are two reasons why a contract can automatically extend. So it says here in section A, if paragraph 8B is checked, so if you want to, it's paragraph 8B is essentially the financing section, which we'll
Yes.
get to. Is checked, closing funds from the buyer's lenders are not available on the closing date due to the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, which is the CFPB, closing disclosure delivery requirements. Then closing date shall extend for a period necessary to satisfy the CFPB requirements. And it shall exceed 10 days. So, right there, if the lender does not have, this actually happened to me. I was representing a seller, and the seller wanted to call a breach of contract, but the funds were not available by the lender. It's not simply not just meaning like the funds are not really available, but the closing disclosure process was not filled out and wasn't able to be issued within a certain period of time. So therefore, the contract automatically kind of extended, and that's really important. And so the second reason why a contract can automatically extend, because this also happened to me during a hurricane, is in a section B saying force majeure, which is in short meaning is
Yes.
an act of God, a
Correct.
flood, a hurricane, even a terrorist, the new contract will actually have foreign and domestic terrorism acts.
Yep.
Ever since the January 6th incident. So that is coming. So force majeure, essentially an act of God or something beyond the control that forces a delay in the closing.
Yep.
So section 6.
All right. So this one is more so if you're going to be renting or leasing back the property, or if there's going to be, if you have tenants. This I don't really run into very often. I mean, so it's not something as a seller or a buyer that you really have to be too concerned about. If you're renting, if you have like a second home or investment home that you're renting out, then this is something that you're going to have to pay attention to.
Yeah,
Or
if you're looking, if you don't have the means to purchase a rental cash, and Jared, I'm sorry to cut you off. If you don't
yeah,
have the means to buy a property cash for a rental investment, but you can have enough for a down payment for financing. The down payment is about 20% now for rentals or more, and if you intend on actually leasing the property, that is the box you want to check, section B. And then
yeah,
what they'll want to see is called a post-closing occupancy.
correct.
Um, and it's about 12-page document, just like another contract about a lease agreement. So
Right.
that is what you
Right.
would normally do. But
Yeah.
typically, number 6 falls right in category with number 7, which is assignability.
Correct. So I actually have a contract now where, so let's talk about it real quick. So assignability, and this is from the buyer side. So you have three options. Either the buyer may assign it to somebody else and not be responsible. The buyer may assign it and still be liable, or the buyer may not assign it to anybody. What that means is they get their name on the contract. They execute the contract. You know, you have an agreement, and then now that buyer wants to pass the sale on to somebody else. It could be, you know, anybody. You don't know who they're going to pass it on to, and then whether or not that person who signed the contract is still liable. So let's say they pass it on to somebody, that other person flakes out, doesn't buy it. The original person is long gone. You'll never hear from. They're not liable for the contract.
Mhm.
So that first option here, this one right here, I get pretty nervous about if I ever see that. And you'll see that from investors who are just,
Wholesalers.
or yeah, wholesalers, investors. They come in, they're just buying it, and then as soon as they get a contract, it's like the stock market. I mean, they go and they wave it and they say, "I've got this contract. Who wants it? I'm going to sell it to you for more money." And then they
Mhm.
assign it to them, and hopefully they go on through.
Mhm.
I just had a contract on that came through where the buyer selected this one, and I called the buyer's agent and I asked him. I said, "Hey, what's going on here? Why are we assigning? Who are we assigning it to?" And in this case, so it's an investor, and he may want to assign it to, so he's got his name on it. He may want to assign it to one of his LLCs or something like that. So
Mhm.
not a super big deal, and he's still liable. So if his LLC, or if he decided to assign it to somebody else, if
Mhm.
that other person doesn't buy it
Yeah.
or follow through, then that original person is still liable. So this one is not too bad. The most common one is going to be may not assign this contract. That means
Mhm.
whoever's name is on this contract is the person that is going to follow through and purchase the property. So that is the most common one. That is the one I 99% of the time I see, except for the one contract that I just had where it was this one right here. Another reason people do it is, it might be a family member that's putting it, getting the contract going, and then they're going to assign it to another family member
Mhm.
because they're trying to help them buy a house or something like that. It's nothing that typically it's nothing that is it's not a scam or anything like that, but it is something just to be aware of. If it's anything out of the ordinary, if it's not this, then you want to ask questions. What's going on? And that's what we
Yeah.
did. I asked the
Yeah.
agent questions. Have you seen? Do you see a lot of that?
Investors predominantly,
Yeah,
yes. I
yeah,
did have one. It was a condo. We sold it. It was definitely a little undervalued because it was a little roughed up. And the buyer was an investor, and he did have it. Buyer may assign and thereby release from further liability.
yeah.
And so it did get transferred, and luckily that new investor did purchase the property. Now it does manipulate the numbers at the end of the day of, but the math still works out because what happens is typically with a wholesaler say, hey, I have a contract for $150,000.
Hmm.
I will sell it to investor B for $155,000. So therefore he goes under contract, investor B goes under contract for 155,000, and investor A takes that $5,000 difference and dips. He
Yes.
says thank you.
Yep.
And so that is a very common move. That's something that I got to experience. But yes, Jared, I'm with you 99% of the time.
Yep.
You're looking at may not assign this contract because if investor A comes in and assigns it to somebody else, there's nothing promising that investor B from continuing the contract. And it could be day 7 of a date of 8-day inspection period, and that investor dips out, and great, now you're out 7 days of a contract with the buyer who wasn't serious to begin with. So
Correct.
it's very important that we know who really is kind of buy. Is this someone who's planning on living in it, or is this someone that that's an investor?
Correct. Yeah. So again, it's one of those things. If it's out of the ordinary, talk to your agent about it. Let them talk to the other agent and figure out assigning it and what's going on. And
Yeah.
but it's so because what we're talking about here is just for you as the homeowner or the home buyer to
Us.
know when you see these contracts. I mean, it's a lot of stuff going on here. So this is just for you to kind of be able to go through and be like, yes, I remember. Yes, I remember them talking about that. And it's not main, it's not the checkbox that I think should be checked is not. So I'm going to have my agent. So you're aware of these things now.
Yeah.
So you're going to talk to your agent and you're going to say, hey, this is different. This is
Yeah.
different. What's
What's
going
going
on?
on?
So, because otherwise you just breeze right through it and be like, okay, there's a
Yeah.
checkbox. That one's checked. That one's checked. And
Yep.
you're not really thinking about what is what. So,
Mm. And
yeah.
and Jared, would you agree that these contracts are really for the seller of the buyer's intentions?
Yeah. Yeah.
You know what? Do you kind of see where I mean by that? It's like
Yeah.
it's for the seller to understand what the intentions of your buyer is. So
Correct.
these
Yeah.
contracts, yes, they're for both people, but for predominantly, it's you selling your asset to somebody, and you want to make sure that
Right.
with anything that you're selling to, the person that you're selling to has clear intentions, and that you
Right.
understand those clear intentions.
Right.
So that's what these contracts and why it's so
Yeah.
important, and why over the course of all of real estate, contracts over the years, the documents just kind of keep getting thicker because of situations
Yes.
that occur.
Yep.
So this contract is 12 pages. The new contract, I believe, is 15 pages,
Yep.
just because of new situations that occurred.
Yep.
So we're only on page 2 of 12, and we're about an hour into it. So
Yeah.
we're going to be speeding this up a little bit. So and if you have
Well,
anybody has any detailed questions, feel free to put them in the chat. We'll address them.
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, throw them in
Uh,
the chat. We'll answer them. But
yep.
so most of the stuff. So there's, I mean, you can look through this contract. There's a lot of verbiage that's
Yeah.
going on here. What really we want to concentrate on is the spots that can be altered. I mean, the rest of the stuff, nobody's going to alter, all this language down here. This was written by lawyers. It was written by,
Hmm.
other real estate agents and lawyers and everything that everybody that has, law degrees and whatnot. But
Yep.
everything that can be altered, that's what, I really want to cover here. So
Hmm.
let's jump into the financing part of it. So, I mean, essentially, there's two options. You either have cash, or you're going to get some sort of loan. There
Yep.
are, some other oddball kind of things. There's still loans. You can do owner financing, stuff like that. But essentially, the brass tacks is somebody's either paying cash or they're getting a loan through a bank or from somewhere.
Yeah.
Um, if they're doing cash, it's going to be option A, and that's pretty. It's as simple as that. There's really no complex gotchas there. It's either cash or it's
No,
not.
it's exactly.
So the other one is you're going to have a loan, and then the buyer is going to select what type of loan that they're going to have. It's either going to be conventional, FHA, VA, or some other type of loan that they've
Hmm.
come up with, or whatever the bank maybe
Hmm.
thought up a new name or something. I don't know.
Yeah. So you got USDA or owner
Yeah,
finance or hard
yeah,
money, whatever the case may be. That way, the title company has a greater understanding of like what's going on. Title company or lawyer.
correct.
Um, so the next series of blanks, you can see there's a lot of them there.
Yep,
So you have a loan within, if left blank, 30 days. And that is essentially called your loan approval period. And that's very important to understand that you have a loan approval period because
yes,
it's although you have like a close date, you still have to obtain the loan itself
correct. Yes,
within that close date. And if the seller wants a closer loan date, then you need to talk to your lender as a buyer and be like, hey, can we obtain a loan approval in 20 days? And if they say no, then you better not put 20 days on there. So it's really important because that's a safe period right there. That's another way. So if you're past your inspection period and you're within your loan approval period, and the
yep,
loan officer comes back and says, hey, unfortunately, you can't qualify for this loan.
yes,
Well, they're going to issue what's called a loan denial letter, and then
yes,
you will turn that into the seller, and
yep,
you will get your deposit back and back out. If you
yes,
are so, say if you have a 35-day close, and you only have a 30-day loan period, if the seller comes back on day 31 and requests the loan approval, like an actual statement saying that you have loan approval and you
hmm,
don't, he can claim breach on you and
yes,
take your deposit. And there's
yep,
nothing you can do about it.
yep.
So it's
And
very important.
there's nothing wrong with getting up to day 20, day 25, and that happens. It can
Mhm.
happen. Your lender calls you back and says, hey, talking to my underwriter, and he needs some more information. We're not going to be able to do it in 30 days. We're not going to hit the deadline. So what you do as a buyer is you create you write an extension. You ask the seller for an extension. You tell them, you be honest. You tell them,
You
hey, I've got to
absolutely be honest.
provide more information to my underwriter. We're almost there, and they just need a little bit more information. We're going to be able to close it in 35 days instead of 30. You
Mhm.
ask for the extension, and then, I mean,
Yeah.
I don't know, unless there's something shady going on, but I've never had somebody come back, and I mean, most of the time you're closing within the allotted time anyways, but if you have to extend, I haven't had any
Well,
issues
I
where a
I have to
seller
extend a
is,
lot.
yeah. So most of the sellers are going to come back and
Yeah.
say, okay, that's. I mean,
Well,
they're so far invested into it, and you're almost there. Chances of
mhm.
them backing out at that point.
Yeah, or it's pretty slim. And when I say,
Yes.
like, I have to do that a lot, I mean that on the seller side. Like, when I
Yeah.
represent the seller, I
Yeah.
am if I am not, um, on them hardcore about what's happening on a weekly basis or
Mm-hmm.
twice a week, like, what's going on, where we at, where we at, where we at, and
Yep.
if I'm not getting the communication, my red flag is starting to get raised. Like,
Yep.
something's happening, and you
Yep.
got to start preparing your seller for a possible
Yes.
extension of
Yep.
it.
Or
So
a cancellation, because I've had
or
that.
cancellation.
When the buyers go dark and I don't hear from them after multiple texts and emails,
Hmm.
I start getting nervous. And typically, in
Yeah.
my experience, I eventually get an email or a response back saying, "Hey, we're gonna have to cancel," and then
Hmm.
it just it
Yeah.
so but nonetheless, um, again, just being able to recognize this stuff, what
Yeah.
kind of loan the buyer is going to go after, whether it's conventional FHA, VA,
Hmm.
or one of the others that Chris talked about, USDA or owner financing, something like that. The time here, and we have to abide by this time. Unless we put something different, we could put 35 days. The buyer
Yeah.
may have talked to
Easily.
the lender and said, "Hey, I can't do a loan in 30 days. This type of loan is going to take me at least 40." So you put 40
Yep.
here. There's nothing wrong with that. Um, but it just, you have to be aware of these dates as a seller and a buyer. And then also kind of moving through, you have fixed, adjustable, or, a combination of the two as far as interest rates. Most of the time I see fixed rates. I don't, really see adjustable rates, especially now.
Mhm.
I mean, the rates are so low. Everybody wants a fixed rate at, 2.99%, whatever it is right now. Um, and then, yeah, not to exceed a certain percentage. I mean,
That's usually
I
always left blank. That's
yeah,
usually
I don't,
always left blank.
yeah. So, and then for terms, and it could be a 15, 20, 30 year loan.
Yeah.
They even have 40-year loans now. You know that?
What?
They're doing 40-year loans. I've seen.
That doesn't sound right, but hey,
I
what
don't
it is.
recommend it, but
I don't recommend that either.
unless you're going to do a 40-year loan, but pay it like it's a 15-year or something. But that's a whole nother
Yeah.
topic.
Yeah.
Um, and
Buyer
then
shall make mortgage payment loan application for the financing within 5 days of left blank. Well, typically, majority of the time when you're submitting an offer, you're submitting a pre-approval letter.
you've already
So
done
you've
it.
already done it. So it's
Yes.
already checked off.
Yep. So that one's already done.
Hmm.
So typically not even an issue. So let's keep going. Um, this section here, I mean, I don't
I never touched that.
know.
It's not applicable for the majority of
Yeah.
the scenarios. But
Yep.
this section right here, closing costs, fees, and charges. So we're
Yes.
now in the era, I call it the era of know before you owe. So we are now in the era of over disclosures and make sure that the consumers understand what costs, what
Yep.
are the fees, and everything is disclosed. But because of 2006, not everything was known or properly disclosed by lenders to consumers.
Right.
Um, so we're in the era of know before you owe, and Section A is cost to be paid by the sellers. You can see it there, and majority of these are either percentage based or they're a flat rate. So
Right.
doc stamps on the deed, that's a percentage. It's
Right.
0.007% of the contract price. Owner's
Mm-hmm.
policy, the title search, the municipal lien search.
Mm-hmm.
Other than the owner's policy, the title, municipal lien search are always a flat rate. Um, then you have to the right of that the HOA, recording other fees, seller fees, and then that little section that says other. If you're a buyer looking to ask the seller for closing costs, that
Right.
section right there is what you put right there.
Yes.
So if
Right
you're
here.
asking for 2% or $500, whatever the number, that's where you put it. There's two
Right.
places where you put it. That's one of them. And so
Yes.
section B is costs to be paid by the buyer. And you can
Yes.
see there's significantly more closing costs than there is to the seller.
Yep.
So the
Yep.
biggest expense, other than the paying off the mortgage itself for a seller, is the commissions. And
Yeah.
that's pretty much the biggest expense for a buyer. You pretty much paying almost all the same money that a or if not and more than you would as a seller. And that's the reason why commissions go to sellers, which is an entirely
Yep.
different subject, but just to
Yes.
kind of give you like an understanding. But because buyers can't finance commissions, and then sellers have the greatest gain and the lowest
Correct.
closing costs in comparison to a buyer.
Right.
So
Yep.
in today's market, I'm doing this with a lot of my buyers, Jared. I don't know about you, but I'm also getting some offers, not a lot of offers, where buyers are playing the seller's closing costs. And you can see there where it
Yeah.
says other
Yep.
buyers, that's where you would put it.
Yep.
Buyer pays
Yep.
0.007 or doc stamps on the deed and the
Right.
amount that's
Yep.
there.
Yep. And it's a ultimately it's a strategy to help win a contract if
Yep.
if we're in a competitive market. So not only am I going to give you a full price offer, I'm going to help you with some of your
Mhm.
closing costs too. So it's definitely a strategy. So
Yep. I
again,
do it all the time.
something to look through, something to be, aware of. Typically it's, most of
Mhm.
the time we kind of, unless there's just a ton of offers coming into a seller, this'll, it'll be blank.
Yeah.
Sellers aren't going to pay, anything for the buyers right now.
Yeah. Not right now.
If anything, the
Depending on where you
buyers,
are.
correct. So again, just something, if they're not blank, again, talk to your agent,
Yep.
figure out why they're not blank, and then go
Yep.
from there.
And
Um,
before we go on even further, I just want
yeah,
you guys to know that in section B and in section A, all those things, majority of the rest of this contract is going to be disclosures and standards. The disclosures are common addendums that go with the contract if the
yep,
scenario calls for it. And then the standards is pretty much definitions of our commonly used terminology. And
yeah,
you can see here as we go a little bit further how costs be paid by the buyer will be starting to break down and into like a further definition.
right,
So this next box right here, if you can scroll down to section C, is seller shall designate a little further
yes,
down. You see it?
yep,
Yeah, seller shall designate closing agent and pay for owner's policy and charges. Well, if you
yep,
scroll back up to the seller section, what does it say right there? Owner's policy and charges
yep,
as a second thing. So you can start seeing here as we further get down how it's going to be further broken down because we're in, again, the era of know before you owe.
correct.
So go
And
ahead, Jared, take it from there.
typically, so this, the first box here is the one that's typically checked. The seller is going to choose the title company. The seller is going to pay, or they're going to, designate the closing agent and pay for the owner's policy and charges. I actually haven't had any contracts where this one is ticked. At least,
Oh,
you
all
know,
the time.
do you?
Yep, all the time.
No.
Yeah.
What kind of is it? Is it a strategy somebody's using?
Stonebridge or Stone Key.
Okay.
That major investment company, they
Yeah.
also have
Okay. So
their
yeah.
own title company and everything.
So that makes sense. I mean, if it's an investment company that has their own title company, then yes, then
Yeah.
that investment company is going to use their own title company and escrow and all that kind of
Hmm.
stuff. But
Yep.
typically, for what I see on residential stuff, it's if it's not an investor, if it's just one person to another person,
Hmm.
the seller, this box is checked. The seller is picking the closing company, the closing agent, and paying
Yeah.
for it.
So yeah, and they split costs. So that first box is where, excuse me, the seller pays for their owner's
Yes.
policy and the buyers
Yep.
pay for their own owner's policy.
Right.
The buyer shall designate closing agent and pay for owner's policy and charges. You're actually accumulating more
Right.
charges, more costs. You're willing to
Correct.
pay for the seller's owner policy in a sense. So I got
Correct.
to be careful with my interpretation here. But in essence, the most commonly checked box is that first one.
Yes. Um, and then, so we're not going to talk about this is Miami-Dade. They kind of have their own thing going down there. we're not down
Mhm.
there, so we're not going to worry about it. So
Yep.
um, let's see, home warranty. Right now, most of the time it's not applicable, but every once in a while you might see somebody requesting one that the seller pays for home warranty or something. If it's old appliances or something, maybe. But
Mhm.
typically, right now, it's going to be NA,
NA.
or you can designate some sort of amount, not to exceed some certain amount. Typically a home warranty is what, 5, 6, 700 bucks, something like that, depending on the size
Yeah.
of the home, what kind of appliances, if is there a pool, that kind of stuff.
Yep. And you can, as a buyer, you can ask the seller for it. You can split it with the seller, or you can
Yeah.
do it yourself. And you can do it
Yep.
at any time. So if the inspection period comes up saying that the AC is at the end of its life, but still working within its efficiency range, but you're not feeling too good about it because you're already dishing out down payment and closing costs. I don't want this thing to break down in the middle of summer, 2 months into me living here. I'm not going to be able to afford it to replace it. So therefore,
Right.
you can afford a warranty up to say like $500-600 for a 1 or 2 year warranty, and then you can apply that in the middle of the contract. You just got to make sure that your agent gets that information to the title and the lender. That way, they are aware of it.
Right. Let's see.
Special
Um, special
assessments.
assessments. So this is an interesting one. So most of the contracts that I've been getting are checked with B. So let's talk about special assessments real quick. These aren't the same as what a condominium are going to do. If they have to put on a new roof and they don't have the budget for it, they're going to put out a special assessment to all the owners in the condo. This special assessment comes from some sort of government body, the county, the city, something like that. Let's say they're going to repave the road or something around your house, and then sometimes what they'll do is the county will come in. They'll say, hey, we're going to repave your road, and then we're going to put an assessment onto your property tax. So they're going to have you pay an uh, extra amount on top of your property tax for the next 5 years or whatever, until they recoup the cost of what it took to repave the road.
Hmm.
So what this is if option A is checked, the seller pays for any assessments all the way up until closing, and then the buyer takes it over from there. If option B is checked, the seller is responsible for the full amount. So if the assessment is for the next 5 years, let's say it's a $10,000 assessment spread out over 5 years. Well, guess what? If option B is checked, you, the seller, have to pay that full $10,000 in addition to everything else that you're paying
Hmm.
at closing. All
Yep.
that has to be reconciled before you actually close on the property.
Yeah.
And I've been getting this one quite a bit. The default, if neither one of them are checked, then option A shall be deemed selected. There's a reason for that, because the most fair option is the seller
Hmm.
pays it before it's closed, the buyer pays it after it's
Hmm.
closed.
It's one of
I
the reasons why I love the as is contract, because it truly is fair.
Yes.
It's a really fair. Just by standard default, it's
Yes.
fair.
Yes. Yep. And most of the time, if there's going to be some sort of assessment, you kind of have an idea of what the county's going to be doing in your neighborhood. For neighborhoods that maybe have some old roads, or you're just unsure, make
Hmm.
sure that this box is checked.
Yep.
Anytime you're going through this contract, if you look for things like this, that the default option is a particular thing, and that default option is not ticked, is not checked, make sure, look at it as a red flag, talk to your agent about it, and figure out why it's not checked, and then go from there. So that's kind of how, when I talk to sellers and buyers, I usually say, when you're looking at it, if the default option is not checked, talk to me, call me, let me know what you're thinking. And chances, I've already seen it, I already know what's going on, but
Hmm.
um, I want, my buyers, I want my sellers to be able to look at this and understand what's going on.
Yep.
So not, yeah, pretty straightforward. Do you have anything else to say on this one?
Nope. I think the point was pretty much conveyed.
Yep. Um,
So
let's
this next
see.
section is just pure disclosures.
Yeah,
No,
disclosures. This is just a timestamp here.
it's nothing. That only
Um,
applies if you're in a flood zone, anyways.
correct. The
So
next
we can
big
skip through
one
this.
is
Here's
going to
the
be here's the next big one. So this is the property inspection.
Yep.
So again, the default is 15. Right now, typically I'm seeing about a 7-day, sometimes even a 5-day inspection
Yeah.
period.
It's
So
five to
what
seven.
what an inspection period is, that's the time that you sign the contract, it's accepted. I now have 5 days. I now have 7 days to hire an inspector to get out to that house to do whatever other due diligence that I'm going to do before this time period runs out, because this is the only time period that you are going to have in order to back out of the contract without any consequence. So you
Mhm.
can back out for any reason that you need. You don't have to give a reason to the seller. You just let your agent know that it's not going to work.
Yep.
It's not going to work, and I'm going to back out.
Yep. It literally says a buyer's sole discretion. So
Correct.
you could wake up being like, my gut feeling or my spirit says not
Right.
to buy this house.
Right.
So you can actually do that, and
Right here.
you literally get your deposit back, and the seller agrees to that. It doesn't mean the seller is not going to fight you on it, but it does mean that you will get your deposit back. This right here, this section 12, is the meat and potatoes of the as is contract.
Yep.
It's literally this is it.
Yep.
So
Yep.
but in the event that any inspection that you do results into some damage of the property, you are obligated by this contract to remediate it, fix it, or give the seller a check to fix it, and it must be enough to fix it completely back to its original state. Um, to further kind of implement this, the inspection period falls into a calendar day. So this is
Yes.
Jared. I don't know about you, but I've gotten into a lot of arguments with listing agents
Hmm.
about about this. This falls under a calendar day because an inspector can go out on a holiday. An inspector can be there on a Saturday or Sunday.
Correct.
So essentially, you have until 11:59 p.m. to cancel to submit a cancel and release.
Hmm.
And but I'm gonna tell you, do not contact your agent at 11:50 p.m. to cancel this contract because it's not gonna fly.
Right.
They're most likely gonna be asleep because I will be, and so and what I think if you are gonna cancel after the inspection, you it you have to take in consideration that somebody's still going to purchase this property, and if this property has enough issues with it that you feel like it's going to be a recurrent issue, and that I always try to advocate to give your inspection reports to the seller so they can properly disclose it to the next buyer, so that next
Right.
buyer is not shelling out $500 to $700 for inspections, and they're aware and they can make their determination long before they can go under contract.
Right. Yep.
So that's one thing I always do when I'm a listing agent and someone backs out because of the inspection. I ask them like, "We'll give you the money back, but please give us the reports
Yep.
so we can inform the next buyer."
Right. Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
playing nice in a sandbox. It's playing nice in a
Correct.
sandbox, and it's super
Correct.
important.
It is. It is. The biggest takeaway from this section is if you need to back out, you got to do it
Yeah.
within that time frame.
You want to know how
Um,
important this section is? The entire thing is bolded and
yes.
italicized.
Yeah.
It's the
Look
only.
at
The
look
rest of
at
this
the
contract
rest.
is not,
Yes, it's normal text. This one is bold.
and
So
italicized.
and italicized. So yes, it's important. So if you're gonna back out, you have to do it within that day or within this time period.
Yep.
do all your due diligence. And if you're gonna do a short inspection period, a 5 day, make sure before you're even signing and sending this contract over that you already, if you're a buyer, that you already have your inspector lined up, because I've
Yep.
seen a couple of times where, you know, a seller, a buyer comes in, they send us the contract, and they have like a 5 day inspection
Mhm.
period, and then they call me up like 3 days later. They're like, "Hey, I need to extend my inspection period because I can't find an inspector."
Well, that's your fault.
What I
So,
mean, what am I supposed to do? I gave you 5 days. I accepted the contract because
mhm,
it was a good price, and you only needed 5 days to
continue.
do it. Now you need more.
Yeah. Like, no,
I'm sorry.
nope.
So
So before we go any further, we got to address Derek's question. Does a home inspection really
yes,
cover the pool and make sure it is up to standard? Yes and no. So if you're going to hire an inspector, the inspector needs. I would recommend it being a pool inspector.
yeah,
That way they can give you, because during this inspection period you can have any inspection you want: mold,
correct.
mildew, WDO, general
Septic.
wind, 4 point septic. Yep,
Yep,
pool, anything and everything, drywall,
yep.
and um, so I would recommend that you get it because it is part of the property. It's a fixed
Mhm,
structure. They're super common.
mhm.
And if it tells you that the pool is not running in condition, or it's the lining is being chipped away and needs to be replaced,
Right,
that's up to you, as a consumer, as the buyer, to figure out what you want to do with that. If you saw the property as you put in the offer, before you put in the offer, and the water was blue, everything was in good condition and running, and by the time the inspection come it's green, well, that actually falls under the section 11, the
right,
property maintenance.
right.
So you can actually go back to the seller and be like, hey, this needs to be, and it even says it right there, go ahead and
Yep.
unclick it and pull. So it has to maintain in that same condition. But if you saw the pool already green, halfway filled, it's not hasn't run or been turned on,
Right.
that's essentially how you're purchasing it. And it's
Correct.
up to you as the consumer to get a pool inspection to ensure that it is, either in working condition,
Right.
or the best that whatever a pool inspector does for the property.
Essentially,
So
whatever condition the property is at the time of the contract is how it should be at the time of closing when you buy the house.
yeah,
That's how it should
there's
be, minus,
yes.
all all the seller stuff needs to be out, and
Mhm.
everything like that, and they have to clean
Yeah.
it and make sure it's presentable.
Right. And there's a couple other things that, when it comes to working condition versus something that is essentially defective,
Right.
and there's a lot of nuances into that,
Right.
that we can get really deep into scenario weeds. We just don't have time for it. And Jerry, to be
Yeah.
honest with you, we're gonna have to do a part two for the FAR bar contract, because another hour and a half for the FAR bar is just gonna be
Yeah.
a little lengthy.
Yeah, and the reason I want to go with this one is just because it's the most common one. I mean, the far bar,
Agreed.
like I said, we don't see it too much right now. The as is the one that we're using,
Mhm.
and you can see I'm here's the inspection section. This stuff I'm just gonna scroll through because, like I said, this is all stuff that we
Mhm.
can't change. We're not gonna change. If you ever see a contract where an agent has crossed any of this stuff out, uh, red
Oh,
flag,
yeah.
red flag.
Crimson.
Um, we need to be on the horn, and what the heck is going on? But
Yeah.
so, again, it's stuff to read, it's stuff to understand, but it's not stuff that we're gonna cover here just because it's not something that we're gonna change.
Mhm. Hey,
So that's
Jared,
why, yeah,
we go back up real quick
yeah,
to the default and
yep,
dispute resolution. We should do a video on that, just that
okay,
alone, and
yeah,
just do a bunch of scenarios.
yeah, yep,
I think that would be a
agreed,
good one.
yep,
What happens when the buyer defaults? What happens when the seller defaults?
yep,
Who's entitled to that escrow? That would
yes.
be a really good video for a lot of people.
Correct. Yeah. Yeah, you're right.
So right now, what he's scanning through is essentially standards, and again, that's that terminology, the commonly used terminology that we use within
Yeah.
our
Yeah.
industry. So this
All right.
section here is addendums and additional terms. So depending on your loan type or the scenario at play, you're going to need to select some of these addendums. It's not very often where you don't need an addendum or at all. Um, but whatever applies. So if you're in an HOA, you would select the HOA rider or addendum. If you're FHA or VA, you would select that.
Yep.
Defective drywall, anything between 2002 to 2007.
Yes.
Anything older than 78, you would need a lead-based paint. If you
Yep.
are a seller that is contingent upon the sale of your house, meaning if you have to sell your house in order to
Correct.
buy the next house,
Mm-hmm.
then you would select that. Or if you're a buyer who has to sell your house in
Right.
order to purchase the next one, you would need that addendum.
Mm-hmm.
And then it just goes on from there. Any type of scenario, any type of
Right.
additional terms.
Right.
I'm waiving the appraisal.
Correct.
I want to contribute to the seller's closing costs. I want the seller to purchase some of my closing costs, etc., etc. That's whatever in additional terms. That's where we'll go right there. And I think Jerry just had a dog fight.
Yeah. I don't know, the goats are knocking at the door or something. But yeah,
What else?
additional terms, all your addendums, make sure that the addendums are checked and make sure that they are, yes, I'm doing a video here.
So make sure the addendums are going along with the contract when they apply, and make sure
Yes.
those are filled out as well.
Yes. So sorry, that was my oldest. He's like peeking around. I'm like, I can't even concentrate now because
There's so much going on. That's great.
it's fine. Um
But that's
and
it, man.
but yeah, make sure these addendums, if they're checked, make sure they're actually there. That's what I was trying to say. Is I've seen a couple of times where these these two are checked and I
Mm-hmm.
get the contract, but then I don't get this addendum, I don't get this one to know what are we appraising, what's the cutoff for
Yeah.
the appraisal, what is the FHA criteria that you're setting for this purchase.
Yep.
So all this stuff has to be there, especially this one right here. If it's pre 1978, this is a big deal. You also get a little pamphlet that talks about lead paint
Mm-hmm.
and the dangers and everything like that.
Yep.
So all these things are super super important to make sure that they're actually attached to the
Mm-hmm.
contract. um
And ultimately, it really conveys competence
yes.
as a buyer's agent, and
Yep.
as well as when the listing agent points these things out to the
Yep.
seller, be like, this offer may be lower by like $5,000, but this contract is complete. Here's all their
Correct.
addendums. Here's their
Yes.
pre-approval letter. Oh,
Yep.
look, here's a letter to the seller. Whereas this contract, yeah, maybe $5,000-$10,000 more, but it's
Right.
incomplete. I have no pre-approval letter.
Correct.
I don't know
Yep.
what their terms are. Like,
Yep.
we're missing disclosures, and you really have to say is like, who's going to get this job done at the end of the day? Because
Yep.
as a listing agent, you can call the other agent all day long, but that person doesn't have to pick up their phone if they don't want to. They could be
Correct.
an absent person who only does this part time,
Yep.
and so like it's competence, 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 and
Yep.
that's the biggest
Yep.
takeaway for having a clean offer.
It is. It is. It looks good. It's more presentable, and it's the cleanest offers are going to be the strongest, or it's going to help to advocate for your
Mm,
offer.
100%.
This last section here is so you get the offer, you reviewed all the stuff that we just talked about, and then you're either gonna you basically have three options. You're either gonna counter the offer, and it could be it could just be just the price. It could be any one of those fill in items. It could be
Mhm.
the inspection date. I had one. The guy wanted a 20-day inspection.
Oh
We
my god.
countered. We countered back with 10. There's some nuances to the house. There's a lot of due diligence that needs to be done. So he was asking for 21. We said we'll give you 10. You know But so it doesn't have to just be purchase price. It could be, any one of these things
Mhm.
that we can edit. So again, I said there's three things. You're either going to counter, you're going to reject it, or you're going to accept the offer.
Mhm.
Those are really the three main things that you're going to do when you see an offer. I mean, do you agree with that, or you have something
No,
different?
that
Yeah,
is 100% it, yeah.
yeah.
And the
So
thing is, the seller doesn't necessarily need to even say seller rejects the offer by clicking that box. You
correct,
can easily essentially, it's everything's in writing. Through email is a form of
correct,
negotiation. Be like,
right,
seller rejects it, or
right.
no response at all.
Correct. A
You
no
can
no
I've
response
gotten
is the
that
same as a
as a
rejection.
rejection.
So,
Yeah.
it is nice, it is kind of a courtesy thing to at least let the other party know that, hey,
Mhm.
we're going with another offer, or if that's the
Yeah.
only offer, that, hey, we're rejecting your offer. Just, you don't even have to counter. Part of
Yeah.
a strategy is for the seller to not even counter and just say, hey, essentially come up with something better, and
Yeah.
then, we're not even going to counter what you offered.
Mhm. Yeah, there are um, years worth of just scenarios stored up in my head of just crazy,
Yeah.
um, off wall, just no consideration, no thought process to how these some of these buyers agents and investors. I'll
Yeah.
get emails saying like, "Will your seller accept 164,000?" I'll literally respond and say, "LOL, is that your down payment?" It's
Right.
like,
Right.
and for a house that's like
Oh,
$250,000,
yeah.
just like, are you
Yeah.
serious right now? And it's funny.
Yeah.
It's like you're literally emailing me
Yeah.
and it's saying like
And
if
with
it's that.
with contracts, and my biggest thing is, we get verbal offers, we get these email offers. At the end of the day, if it's not in a contract, in my opinion, it's not a valid offer. It's not even an
I
offer.
agree.
It's just, I
Yeah.
mean, I can walk up to anybody and say, "Hey, I'll give you $100 for that watch." But
Yeah.
unless it's in a contract, it doesn't really
You get
mean a whole
shit.
lot.
Exactly. It's
So
what's in
it's
writing.
especially for real estate. So I mean, yeah, we get all these emails, and I got one the other day. The house was listed at 329. Hey, I'll give you 225 cash. Would your
Yes.
seller be willing to do that? And I didn't even bother it with a response, but
Yeah, that too.
again, if why would you even email me? Just fill us, if you're an agent, I can fill one of these out in probably about 5 or 10 minutes. Most of the
A good
stuff,
one. A good
a
one.
good one.
Like
Yeah,
after some experience, like you
correct,
should be able to knock that
correct.
out in 10 minutes, 10
So
15.
so if I'm gonna offer somebody something, I'm just gonna fill one of these out. I'm gonna send it over to them. So at least it's official. It's because guess what? If the seller wants to accept it, I don't want them to come back and say, "All right, we'll fill it out." By the time I fill it out, send it back to them, they may change their mind. If I'm
Yep.
gonna, if I'm gonna offer them something, I'm gonna send it to them. So all they got to do is sign,
Mhm.
and then they send it back, and then, hey, we're under contract now. So
Mhm.
it
Yeah.
you might as well just do it. So yeah, all these emails and stuff, it just doesn't mean anything
Yeah.
unless you have the actual offer.
It's pretty wild.
So
So the key difference again for between the as is and a standard FAR bar contract is that meat and potatoes of the inspection, the right to inspect and cancel.
yeah,
Um, and it's super important that you know exactly um, which one that you want to go with because you can submit an offer to a seller on the far bar guarantee for repairs.
yeah,
So it's really about what you want to do. But personally, not personally, but professionally, I will always kind of recommend the as is contract just because it's going to be um, so much easier for
yeah,
both
yeah,
parties. Because
yeah,
also one thing that we didn't discuss, Jared, is that as a seller and a buyer, the buyer still has a right to request repairs. And there's a fine line there on what you can request, and the seller has the right to say no. to those repairs.
Right.
So if it is a repair that is going to hold up insurance or
Yep.
hold up financing, then the
Yep.
seller, if you want the deal to go through, you should be inclined to go ahead and fix those items for insurance purposes and financing purposes.
Yeah.
If you don't and you say no, I'm not fixing it, this is as is, you're pretty ignorant because the next buyer you go to is going to have that exact same problem, that exact same issue, and you're going to be
Yeah.
like, what's with, you're going to blame everyone except for accepting the fact that you have this issue that's going to hold
Yeah.
up insurance and ultimately going to hold up financing.
Right. Yeah.
So,
Yeah. Yeah.
any final thoughts?
No, I mean, when it comes to the contracts, just, look through
Be
it,
smart.
be smart, talk to your agent. If you're not, if you're not dealing with an agent, you're using a real estate lawyer. I mean, they're, great.
Perfectly fine.
Um, Nonetheless, talk to somebody who has filled one of these out, who has looked at it more than just one time. Because a lot of
Yeah.
times for sellers, a lot of times for buyers, this is the very first time or maybe second time that they've ever seen one of these contracts. But I guarantee that most of them have just kind of perused it, looked over, okay, the purchase price, that's good. Closing date, that's good.
Mhm.
Okay, sign. And then that's
Yep.
that's about it. Honestly, that, before I got into real estate and and I bought my first house, that's literally what I did. I looked at the purchase price, I looked at closing date. Okay, that sounds good. None of the other
Yeah.
stuff made sense to me
Yeah.
because I
That's
didn't know
scary.
anything about it. So,
That
but
is
I
so
signed my
scary.
name to it and I'm liable for it. So again, just make sure, um,
You
even if your
understand it.
agent hasn't offered, go to your agent and say, hey, can you just give me the quick and dirty of what I'm signing here?
Yeah. Do I
And
need anything to be concerned of? Is there
yes,
anything that's going to
yeah,
hold us up? Like,
yeah,
what are we looking at here? And
correct.
just do it. Like,
Yeah,
I've actually gotten calls from people who are working with other agents and say, "Hey, does this sound right?" And it's just like
yeah,
it's mildly insulting.
right,
It's insulting because you come to me after you're already working with another agent and you're asking me for advice. So it's
right,
just like, wow, so you knew in your gut you should have gone with me, but you went with someone else because of someone else's feelings.
correct,
So it's kind of wild, but not pettiness, but
right.
ask your agent,
Yes,
ask your
yep,
agent, and if you still feel that they're incompetent
yep,
or not giving you the response or answers that you're looking for,
yep,
then absolutely reach out to me or reach out to Jared or reach out to any one of your other friends for advice because at the end of the day, it's just like this is an overwhelming purchase.
yeah,
So
yeah,
and as a seller, again, same thing applies to you. Like this is an overwhelming thing to sell. You don't want to get
yeah,
screwed out of any money,
yeah,
and you so just reach out to somebody.
yeah. I mean, this is when it comes down to it, your house is probably the most expensive thing that you own. It's the most expensive thing that I own.
Same.
Um, I don't have you know super fancy cars and that are worth more. Some people buy cars that are worth more than their house, which good for them. But my
I
home
don't
is the
understand
most.
that.
I don't, but um, my home is the most expensive thing that I own. So when I'm gonna sell it or when I'm gonna buy a new one, I want to make sure that
You understand
I
everything.
understand everything that I'm getting into because it is a legal document. This is something that you can be taken to court and sued if you breach
Hmm.
contract and not just
Yep.
sued for your escrow, not just sued for a little bit here and there. I'm talking about, tens of thousands of dollars, depending on what kind of house that, you were trying to buy or you're trying to sell and somehow you breached a contract. You're talking lawsuits that are you know 30, 40, 50, up to $100,000 depending
Oh,
on the
easy.
circumstance.
Yep.
When you start throwing in
Easy.
lawyer cost and court fees and
Hmm.
all the damages and this, if you're a buyer, that seller has already moved out and vacated and emptied out the home and then you decided not to buy it, now they have to go on back on the market and they have to I mean there's endless amounts of things that they're going to hit you for, and you really want to be sure about what you're signing when it comes to these
Yes.
contracts.
And you have to be literally, as a buyer, willing to purchase that property. And
Correct.
then as a seller, you have to be literally willing to sell that property.
Yep.
Because if you're a seller and you decide to change your mind at the last minute,
Yep.
that buyer can sue you to
Yeah.
sell that house. And
Correct.
majority of the time, if you're breach of contract as a seller, that buyer is definitely getting your house. And not
Hmm.
only that, you're paying for your lawyer and you're paying for the buyer's lawyer. And then you're
Yes.
paying court costs.
Yep.
And I'm telling you, it's not going to end well.
And
You're
by that
better off
time,
selling that house unless
yeah.
you have concrete proof that the buyer's in breach of contract or you are no longer obligated by the contract.
Yep.
Promise you, it's not going to end well as a
Yep.
seller.
Yep. So,
100%.
well, I mean, we've kind of, as we always do, we always, beat it up with a dead, beat it with a dead horse. What's the saying? Beat it
Beat a
with a
dead
dead,
horse.
beat a dead horse.
Yeah.
That's, I don't know. That sounds kind of vulgar.
Well,
I
we
don't
just
know,
wanted to lay down the hammer.
but
We just
you
want to
know,
make sure people understood and conveyed it, the
yeah,
message clearly.
yeah. Hopefully, you have a better understanding of what a contract is, what the real estate contracts are. Again, there's different contracts. The as is, the FAR bar, which is the non as is contract. There's differences as far as the non as is requires the seller to pay for certain repairs, whereas the as is, it just what it says. It's
As
as is. The
is what we
house is
just went
as
over.
is,
Yep.
and addendums and everything like that. If you're still unsure about something, I mean, and you're watching this, leave us a comment in the comment section, whether you're watching on YouTube or Facebook. It should be down below somewhere, um, and and we'll
Look
get
into
we'll
it.
get back to you.
Yeah.
We're Chris and I are pretty active on social media, so or find our numbers and send us a text. Literally, I mean,
It's public information. You can
yeah,
find it under my Facebook page
yep. You can send us a
and
text
Instagram.
anytime. Send me, I
Yep.
tell you what, send me a text saying, just so I know that you're watching this. Send me a text, just something stupid, a smiley face, and be like, hey, what's up? Something like that. I don't care. Just I want to see who's watching it. But anyway, so kind of change the subject a little bit. So one of our fellow agents, and I didn't know him personally. I've met him, I think, once. Chris,
Mhm.
you knew him a little bit better, so I'll kind of let you talk about.
Yeah. So a really good buddy of mine and colleague, Justin Gomez, recently lost his fight to COVID pneumonia,
Mhm.
and he is definitely one of the nicest people. A community of people are really hurt right now, and I've known him pretty much my entire real estate career, so going
Yeah.
on 7 years now, and I definitely cried. I lost a lot of faith today because he was a young guy. He leaves
Mhm.
behind an amazing wife and 3 kids, 3 awesome kids. And he was essentially their rock. He was essentially the breadwinner for that. And Jared, if you could throw up the GoFundMe page.
Yeah.
As you can see, we've already matched the goal, but people are still donating, as you can see. And it's to really help out with his expenses
Mm.
to Deanna, his wife, and to his kids, because like I said, he was pretty much the sole provider, and yeah, it definitely it hurts. It hurts a lot. So
I'm gonna post the
yeah,
GoFundMe. I posted it in the comments there. So
so
if yeah,
anything
if
that
you
you
want to,
guys can contribute, I really appreciate it. And
yeah.
his he shouldn't have lost this fight, to be honest with you, because he was transferred to Advent Health, where they told him that there was an ECMO machine that would help him. And when he got there, they said, "Sorry, we don't have one." So to me, it
Yeah.
smells like wrongful death. And there's definitely some lawyers who are going to look into it. But anybody who can donate, I don't care if it's dollar or 50 cents, and if you can donate something to
Yeah.
help with his amount of medical bills, as you can imagine, his
Yeah.
service, everything
Yeah.
that's going to be needed.
Yeah.
So.
And this is going to, his wife, his kids,
Mhm.
just to help with all that stuff. He, from what I understand, he was main, breadwinner, I guess, for the
Yeah.
house, and so that it's a big loss for their family. So, but cheers to Justin, cheers to the family. All right, Chris.
All right, brother.
Well, I
It's been a lot
appreciate
of fun.
everybody that stuck it out with us. And if you
Thank you.
haven't checked out the last couple of episodes, do that on our Facebook page.
Mhm.
You should be able to find a posting there. I'm going to post a link in the comments to the previous one where we talked about getting your home listed. And if you're on YouTube, check out my other videos. I do a market report every single month, somewhere around the 25th, 26th, and talking about different counties in the state of Florida. And if you have a particular county that I don't cover in my market report, let me know in the comments, and then I will. I've had a couple comments already where I've included uh, Marion County and Duval County. And then there's a couple other comments that I've had that in my next uh, market report, I've got a couple more counties coming up. So
Awesome.
it's going to eventually turn into a multi-video kind of thing, because otherwise it's going to take me 20 minutes to get through a market report. But nonetheless, I love when you guys comment and let me know what county that you're in, so then that way I know where to focus my market reports, because that's who I want to help out. So
Yep.
so again, check out my Facebook page. Chris, what's yours?
The Neun Group.
The
So
Neun Group.
it's pretty simple to find out. You can either
Yep.
Google my name. You
Yep.
can. I think that's the easiest thing. Google my name, Chris Neun.
Yep.
Since you're 21 on the Clark, I come up really easily.
Yep.
So same thing with Facebook, Instagram. There's not a lot of people that name Chris Neun on it, so it should be
Yep.
able to pick me up really quick. Or
Yep.
the Neun Group. And
So-
Neun is spelled Neun. Jared, if you
Yep.
could throw that into the text so people can like understand what the spelling of my last name. That always seems to be a little bit of a hiccup for people.
There
Thanks,
we go.
man. Appreciate it.
The Neun Group. And then, so the Neun Group or JDA Florida Homes, we're both Century 21 out Alton Clark agents. And yes.
But really appreciate everyone for coming in tonight.
Appreciate it. I love all the questions that we had tonight. And if you have more questions, make sure you let us know in the comments. All right, guys. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.
Like and subscribe.